Everyone, welcome to Regional Center of the East Bay's caseload ratio discussion, or a plan of correction, which we are mandated to do. I'm going to start my PowerPoint and get right into it. And just so you know, we will be able to take questions at the end of the presentation, where most likely some of your questions will be answered as we go along. Thank you. Alrighty. Just want to click off a few things so that I can see what we're doing here. Okay, so this is the RCEB caseload ratio plan of correction and recommendations for allocation of new positions. And primarily this is for recommendation of new maybe case management positions or any other positions that you might have that might be helpful. And I should introduce myself. I am Ronke Shudipo. I'm the Director of Client Services, and I have responsibilities for all case management services for both counties, Alameda and Contra Costa County of Regional Center of the East Bay. Why are we here? The reason for this webinar is because per Welfare Institution Code Section 4640.6, regional centers are required to submit a plan of correction whenever our caseload ratios are not met for 2 consecutive reporting periods. The plan of correction must be developed with input from the State Council, local organizations representing the individuals we serve, family members, the individuals we serve themselves, regional center employees, including recognized labor organizations, service providers, and other interested parties. So this is why we're here, airing our dirty laundry, just so that you know what's going on. In fiscal year 2022-2023, the governor's budget includes funds for regional centers with the stated purpose of reducing caseload ratios. We've talked about this for any of you that have attended any of our community meetings, excuse me, that we are anticipating being able to do the very things that we're talking about today, which is to reduce caseloads because there is a plan, a purpose for reducing caseloads with funding attached. So it's a new allocation that we're expecting. What does this mean? Regional centers provided caseload ratio data to the Department of Developmental Services, the department, this year in February. This is a change from the usual practice of providing it in March. This year, we will also be required to provide the data in the fall again. The data was collected as of February 1st, 2022. And it looks at case manager positions that are filled as of February 1, 2022, or that haven't been vacant for more than 60 days. There are required reporting categories within the report that we give to the department, and essentially by age groups that we serve: the Early Start program, which is a federal program, Medicaid waiver, another federal program through which we receive funding for case management, community placement plan, developmental center movers, individuals who have moved from the large institutions of developmental centers, and individuals who have complex needs. So these are the categories through which the department has requested reporting from the regional center. So before we get started, so that there's a better understanding of what I will be sharing, I thought we would go over an overview of the caseloads and terms. As I explained earlier, Early Start are those kiddos, those children who are birth to 36 months of age, and that they are a separate federal program, and we do reporting on those caseloads separately. Children in transition, 3 years of age to 18 or 18 to 22, that's another category. Adults and older adults, ages 18 and older. Community placement plan, that has to do with individuals, as I mentioned earlier, who have left or we have moved from the state developmental centers, the large institutions. We had Porterville, Sonoma, Agnews, these are years ago. Those individuals are also captured in a separate fashion. And then Medicaid waiver, which is our home and community-based services, Medicaid waiver for individuals who have Medi-Cal. So the requirements in law, according to what I've just explained, is that if an individual is on the waiver, the caseload ratio should be 1 case manager to 62 individuals, 62 clients served. If they're under the age of 3, the early start, the caseload ratio should also be 1 case manager to 62. If they're on a mover's caseload, which is individuals who have left the state developmental centers over 24 months ago, so they've been out in the community for at least 2 years, their caseload should be 1 to 62. Then movers, those recently leaving the state developmental centers, 12 months to 24 months, their caseloads are supposed to be 1 case manager to 45. Movers within the last 12 months who've been out less than 12 months out of the state developmental centers again, should be at 1 to 45. And then anyone over the age of 3, if they're not a mover and they're not on the Medicaid waiver, which is that federal program for over 3, then there should be 1 to 66. And then complex needs caseloads should be 1 case manager to 25 clients. And just to give a perspective of our regional center, where we serve over 20 to 23,000 clients, individuals on the Medicaid waiver are 7,927. Those who are in the early start years, under 3 years of age, 2,571 individuals, little children. The movers, as we mentioned, those who have moved from state developmental centers, we have 272 of those who have moved, who have been out more than 24 months. For the same category, those who have moved out within 12 to 24 months, we have only 3. And for those who over the last 12 months left the state developmental centers to move into the community, we have 7. Over 3 years of age, everybody else non-Medicaid waiver, non-movers are 12,144. And the caseloads that were created or started, the department identified separately in the last few years, complex needs, individuals with really complex needs. Our regional center has 125 individuals in that category. We also wanted to make you aware of a category that's not captured in the information I just gave, and this is for a new category for individuals with low POS authorizations or no POS service dollars at all over the last fiscal year, the last 12 months. These caseloads are required to have a 1 to 40 caseload ratio. We did not have these caseloads established before February, so that information is not in this report. But going forward, we are in the process of hiring for those caseloads and starting to move individuals onto this 1 to 40 caseload. So in future webinars, we likely will have that information. So going on the current ratios, just to compare what we were supposed, what we're required to by law and what we actually have. You'll see the lower part of this chart here shows our CEB ratios. So where the requirements are to be 1 to 62, we have 1 case manager to 85 on average. That's for the individuals on the Medicaid waiver, the individuals on our early start program under 3 years of age. For movers, individuals who've moved out of the state developmental center over 24 months, we have a caseload ratio of 1 to 70. It's supposed to be 1 to 62. And we're doing quite well for the movers between 12 to 24 months, where we have a caseload average of 1 to 43, where the requirement is 1 to 45. So we met it in that category. In the category of movers within the last 12 months, we also met that, where we have a 1 to 32 ratio, and the cap on that is 1 to 45. And then for the movers, the non-Medicaid waiver, the 12,144 people identified over 3 years of age, our caseload sizes are 1 case manager to 99. And then for the complex needs, that we also are in compliance with a 1 case manager to 19 individuals on those caseloads. We also wanted to share what the averages are across California averages across other regional centers, where the average caseload on the waiver is 1 to 79. For under 3 years of age, 1 to 65. For movers, 1 to 60. For movers between 12 and 24 months, 1 to 52. Those are the areas where, for our regional center, we're in compliance, so we're lower than the statewide average. Movers within the last 12 months, 1 to 32. We're pretty congruent with the rest of the state. And for the over 3 years non-waiver, non-movers, the average is 1 case manager to 82 individuals on the caseload. And we are at 1 to 99. And the complex needs, we're also in compliance, where the statewide average exceeds the 1 to 25 set in law. At 1 to 37, ours is 1 to 19. So we just wanted to share a little bit year to year. I know that it's a chart, and we will make this PowerPoint available afterwards so that you can review it as you wish. But this chart just kind of summarizes for our regional center where we've been across, from 2020, 2021, 2022 is the second, this section here. So we can see how over the last few years, our caseloads have kind of migrated upwards. From 2020, when we had an average of 1 to 75, we're at 1 to 85. And if we look at the other area where there has been some challenges, we were at 1 to 79. 2 years ago, we're at 1 to 8, 1 to 99 now. So analysis of funding. The question is, why is this so? And we're grateful for this opportunity to share with the community why this is so. And we're thankful that it looks like that will be changing over time. So the core staffing formula used by the department, and this core staffing is a formula that's used to determine, based on the number of clients a regional center has over a certain period of time, usually a period preceding the year that we receive the funding. It's used by the Department of Developmental Services. Excuse me, I hope that's not showing. It's a dollar amount that has not changed since the 1990s. So when we grow by a certain number every year, when the Department of Developmental Services looks at how they will fund for the regional center of the East Bay, the costs that they have given us is generally about, well, I don't want to give a number, but it's about $30-something thousand, which is way below what it is that we fund, that we can hire a case manager for. So what that means is, for the amount of money that Regional Center of the East Bay has to grow our case management staff, oftentimes we can only do half of the amount that of the need that we see. So some new positions are allocated at a reasonable salary. So in recent years, the department has heard that there is a need to look at the core staffing formula, and there's a need to really look at what it actually costs to hire a case manager. And so recent positions, so for instance, the 1 to 40 caseloads I mentioned, the specialized caseloads, those that were recent from recent years, those are the funding that Regional Center of the East Bay receives for those are close to what it is that we actually pay in salaries. Unallocated reductions, I did want to point out that there's no consideration for regional variations in cost of living. So the Bay Area, and sometimes the Los Angeles area, and those areas, San Francisco, our neighboring regional centers, where there's a very high impact to the housing market in terms of costs, there is no variation. Each regional center receives, based on that core staffing formula, the allocation for funding of case managers. In recent years, there have been unallocated reduction from previous recessions, and they have not been removed. They have not been rolled back. There's still once even what is allocated to a regional center for operations, which is for running of the regional center, not the purchase of service. There is an unallocated reduction that still applies. Hiring and retention challenges with competing social service organizations with higher salaries. Regional Center of the East Bay happens to be, at least when we take a look at our neighboring regional centers, one of the higher, we have higher salaries than some of our neighboring regional centers. However, we do compete with some of the social service organizations with higher salaries and benefits packages. No consideration of healthcare costs or additional costs due to employment law changes. So anytime the employment laws change, there are no changes to the core staffing or to the way that the funding is allocated. So what would it take for Regional Center of the East Bay to meet an average 1:62 caseload ratio across the board? And I did do that calculation separately before today, and looking at our current numbers as of 2 months ago, 23,000 clients and 49, dividing it, actually I did a 66, and we would need about 88 new case managers. That is equivalent to a whole new regional center sometimes, because there are regional centers that have, some of our smaller regional centers have that amount. Our regional center has about 261 case managers in both counties. So, what have we done in preparation for being able to hire more case managers? We don't know yet exactly how many we will be able to hire in the new fiscal year starting July. However, in preparation for that, our regional center, we have hired a recruiter whose focus is really on helping us really get out there and recruit, as we need to really accelerate that. Priority is on case management recruiting. We're also advocating, and I know that in recent years, there's been a lot of collaboration at some of with our developmental disabilities councils and the legislative committees, all the different things that happen there in collaborating and looking at regional center operations funding, as well as purchase of service, of course, and the funding for our vendors as well. And our local union has joined with us in looking at those and advocating for adequate funding. We support technological innovations to facilitate our work. We've been looking at technological changes, things that we can do to streamline things internally so that it doesn't weigh heavily on the case managers to do things in a more tedious way. We're increasing our outreach to universities for recruitment. We have, as we said, we have a recruiter that's hired. We're advertising in media targeted at diverse communities so that we can ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of the individuals that we serve. So those are our general plans right now. What should our priorities be for new positions? Of course, early start is our young kiddos are moving quickly. They age so quickly, and there's really an emphasis and a priority for us to make sure that we are meeting those needs as quickly as possible. So we do have an emphasis on early start and whatever hiring we need to do for that, and growth in that area. As we can open up more case management positions, these will be our priorities. Self-determination, it is moving, and we've increased in the numbers of individuals who have been able to transition to self-determination. Continues to be an area that we're really looking at how we can morph and move to better meet the needs of the individuals that we serve. People with low to no POS, we have those caseloads in the process of identifying those and hiring for those positions. Transition age youth is another area. We know that transitions, the early start to the older ages is a transition to school, transition to what we call the over 3 Lanterman services. So that's an emphasis. But the transition age youth, we want to start paying even more attention to that age as our young folks graduate from school and start to enter their adulthood. Then older adults living with family. There we do have a sizable group of individuals who live with their families, who, of course, if they're older adults and the family members oftentimes are aging as well. And so we do want to have those as a priority. And so we ask the question, what should priorities be for new positions? So I am done with what we have prepared for you, and I'm open to taking questions. And Michi, I'm going to need some help with that. Michi's our executive assistant who helps us to set these up. We really appreciate all her work. Lisa Kleinbub is on, but she is muted. Our executive director is on.
Hi, I just also thank you, Ronke, for doing the presentation on our caseload ratios. And we wish they were lower at this moment in time, but we're excited that in the next few months, we anticipate getting some dollars that will help us to reduce some of these caseloads. What I think would be important as well from the community is to share where you think our priorities should be. Where should we allocate new positions? Is it important to you to allocate those in transition age, or for very young children, or for self-determination? So we'd really appreciate hearing from that as well. Thanks.
So we have a question that I can see in the chat, and it says, what is considered complex need? Let me make sure that don't see any. So I don't have, I can explain what that is. There are some very specific criteria that the Department of Developmental Services provided to regional centers in terms of who is identified as an individual with complex needs, that involves people who have maybe had some forensic or jail involvement, people who've been served by a crisis response project services, people who are involved with any of the crisis organizations, and either psychiatric or forensic involvement. So there are some very specific criteria that's set over a certain period of time. There's a very specific criteria that has been set for that. Let me see. I see that there is a hand raised. I think Sheridan, I saw something. While we get Sheridan on, I can answer. Thank you. Somebody, Jay-Z, said, in my opinion, we need more case managers for the new clients in self-determination. Thank you. We agree. Self-determination is very important. We agree. Go ahead, Sheridan.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Ronke. Thanks, Lisa. I'm thinking for the Q&A portion of this, it might be helpful for some of us. I know it is for me. Can we bring up the deck again and take a look at that? The one slide that had all of the caseload ratios from the last few years along with state averages. That might help our attendees today look at the ratios and think about those different regional center people served, those populations, and where the attention is needed. And then I just wanted to make a general comment that it's so important for those of us here today, as well as those that aren't here today, that we let folks know about the core staffing formula and how that impacts staffing at regional centers all across the state. If people don't understand how that staffing formula works and the lack of funding that it provides to hire the necessary staff, it's just important for our advocacy work that we understand why our regional centers don't have the staff that's needed, especially during such challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheridan. And I'm going to share my screen now. I can see it, but I don't think you all can. Just a minute. For some reason, it's not coming up like I would like for it to. Oh, I know why. Never mind. All right. Share my screen. There you go. So I have it back up. Can, I assume you can. Okay.
That's good, Ronke. People can see.
Yeah, thank you. All righty, so we'll take more questions. Trying to look in the chat. For some reason, it's not coming up for me. Can you see the chat, Lisa? Do you mind?
Sure. One thing is for special needs, there's no consideration of the actual medical conditions for those clients who have different areas of need to be served better by RCB. Seems like that's a blatant oversight.
Gosh, I didn't
So
mean to do that.
Sharon, it
Right.
sounds like you would like to see some other medical factors taken into account in terms of caseload ratio. I see that. Okay.
Sorry, you guys, I clicked and it took me away from where I wanted to be. So now I have it back up.
There was a comment about translation, and we offered as part of the registration for this webinar translation. That's why we do have ASL. So I apologize if you didn't sign up for the translation.
Any other questions in the chat or any other hands raised? For those who've told us self-determination, individuals with special healthcare needs or medical needs.
There's a question from Rochelle. I missed the number of case managers which will need to be hired to meet the ratio requirements. Can you state the number again?
So by my count, if we brought everything to 1 to 66 on average, it would be 88 new case managers needed. Okay.
Hi.
Any other questions in the chat? If that's it.
Do not see any questions in the chat. I am looking at hands raised.
All righty, well, thank you all. You can always, I believe Michi put some information in the chat already, the right to us. You can always, if you think of something, you need clarity on anything, please feel free to use that. You can email us so that we can get you some answers. And thank you for—
Comment about self-determination and difficulty with getting in because of the case manager not being as available. Okay.
Can you? Yeah. I am going to share my email so that you can email me directly, that individual, so that we can get on that for you. And I just shared my email. You can email me directly on that SDP transition issue.
We should probably leave it open a little while longer. There's a question. What's the biggest challenge for RCB in filling our positions?
In filling positions, I think we mentioned a lot of it. A lot of it has to do with competing the area that we serve and the salaries. Some of it has to do with that. we find that sometimes we've had to kind of pivot and change the way we post positions, because individuals think that it's a range. The salary is a range. We have a union and we have the way that our salaries run. And so oftentimes when they see the range, they think that they can negotiate their entry salary outside of whatever their qualifications are. And really, I think the competing regional centers is one of the issues. The other thing is right now, our regional center has experienced some of what other organizations and agencies and businesses have experienced with movement. People are either moving to other states or moving to other parts of the state. And so some of that has affected retention, or I think COVID did really heighten people's awareness of needing to maybe retire if they want to retire. So we've had a few retirements, but as far as hiring qualified individuals who have knowledge of or experience with individuals with special needs who would really fit the criteria to serve. Our case management positions are really quite independent once we do our usual orientation and probationary period. So we really need people who come in with some good skills that we can train and know that they can move on and manage their caseloads adequately. And thankfully, we have a lot of people who fit that. So we're great. It's great to have the case managers we have. The high caseloads, sometimes people interview and ask what the caseload sizes are. And sometimes that's an issue for them, knowing that there's just no way to be able to address everybody's needs when the caseloads are that high. So sometimes that's a deterrent.
There's a question here about internet access to case managers. And all of our case managers have access to email, internet. We also have almost all of our case managers have access to laptop computers and can work remotely some period of time. So that's a misconception about what's available for our staff. So thanks for asking for that clarification. One of the problems, though, is that our technology is something that, similar to our core staffing formula, dates back to the mid-1980s. And so we do have some systems that are not as up to date as we wish. That is being addressed at the state level right now, and we're hopeful. All case managers have access to the internet, part of our.
Yeah, all case managers have access to the internet. If there's a problem with that, that shouldn't be.
If anyone else has any other ideas about how we might best recruit case managers or any thoughts for us, we're happy to hear from you about that. Yeah. Jalissa says, when you correct the ratio, has it been considered to hire admin assistants to case managers?
I like that idea. Thank you. We have thought about it, by the way. we have thought about adding administrative support and to help with some of those things that you just mentioned, but I like that idea. Thank you.
With local colleges and have interns.
Yes, we're doing outreach. That's part of what we are working or will be working with our recruiter on. Local colleges, especially the one most local to us, Cal State East Bay, we've worked with them in the past and had a few interns. And we really, St. Mary's and some of the other colleges around, we've reached out to, we go to their fairs. And so those are some of the things that we need to ramp up a little bit more than we have in the past.
I was going to say one other thing about that. The budget bill this year, when the governor revised the May budget, it does offer some dollars for tuition reimbursement for staff who might want to get advanced degrees. And we expect that that will require some years of service. So that we'll be happy if that is something that can come about with that budget language.
Yes, absolutely. That's something I was going to mention, that some of our local, like Cal State East Bay Social Work Department and some of the other departments, they have contracts, or kind of like a what do you call it? Anyways, they contracts with Title IV county. So what we find is that to do internships with regional center is not always as favorable, because they have to do their internships with the county. So if we can do something similar to that, I think that will help us bring in a lot more folks, or some more folks.
Well, that is all I see so far, okay?
Okay.
So, really appreciate getting your feedback and comments.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming, and please write to us. If you think of anything else, we will prepare a report sharing some of the your input and the report that we will be sending to the department. Have a good day.